Hey, what's going on, dudes? Mega Killer Fluid Warrior. Bringing another video. Because why the hell not? You know, I'm alone as of right now. So, why not make it? You know, the hell? Because I felt like it. And you know, why not talk about 10 recent year pandemics deadlier than COVID? Because COVID sucks. COVID's a dick. What is wrong with me? I think I was dropped. Anyway, times are difficult as the world bands together to fight the coronavirus. You already know that. You don't need to hear it from me. But you know there were several near pandemics in the recent past? Well, if you don't, you suck. You suck. In fact, some of the diseases in these close calls were far deadlier than COVID-19. Had some of these diseases slipped through the gaps of healthcare workers, the results could have been far more catastrophic than COVID. Because everybody dies of COVID. If you die, it's COVID. But I'm not going to get into that. Here are 10 recent near pandemics deadlier than the coronavirus. Number 10, Ebola. Ebola is an extremely deadly disease originating in Western Africa in 1976. The most probable theory of the disease origin is blood contact by humans with a primate carrying the virus. How the hell do you get blood from another animal if you don't intend to do it? Intentionally do it. The initial symptoms seem mild, including fever, headache, muscle pain, and chills. Later on, those symptoms become deadly and unbearable, with the victim experiencing internal bleeding resulting in vomiting or coughing blood. Ebola is primarily spread through contact with bodily fluids of an infected person or a person who has recently died from the virus. One strain of the Ebola virus has a nearly 3.34 mortality rate when contracted by humans. The most deadly recent outbreak of the Ebola took place in 2013 to 2016, with 28,646 cases and a shocking 11,323 deaths. But apparently COVID, in frickin' 2 years, in less than how many people died from COVID? That's not how you spell from COVID. No, in the world. Global cases, there is 3 million deaths from freaking COVID. There's no freaking way. There is no... So how are you going to say this is more deadlier than COVID if it was only 11,000 deaths? But in COVID, that's 3.1 million. It's fake. Okay, COVID's not fake. I'm not saying COVID's fake. But the death statistics are. There's no way 3 million people have died of COVID. 3.1 million people have died of COVID in just a year. There's no way. I'm not saying COVID doesn't exist. I believe COVID's real. Really, come on. Anyway, the epidemic devastated multiple West African nations. Well, yeah, COVID's global. Now that I think of it. With up to 59% of those hospitalized dying. Some other nations outside Africa experienced limited outbreaks of the virus, including 4 patients in the United States who were quickly isolated. But when COVID came, oh God. A huge part of ending the pandemic was rigorous methods of contact tracing, and quarantining. Vaccines were used in limited role to end the epidemic due to a lack of clinical testing at the time, but have since been used to stop several smaller outbreaks. Number 9, it is still going on today, is AIDS. Today, much more is known about HIV/AIDS and its transmissions, but in the early days of the epidemic in the 1980s, there was little knowledge of the disease. The disease was first identified in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York in 1981, but some experts believe that HIV could have been present in humans as early as the 1960s. Scientists have traced early transmissions of the virus to non-human primates. Several misnomers exist regarding HIV/AIDS, including the now debunked patient zero theory involving Canadian flight attendant Dayton Dugas. More than 700,000 people have died of HIV/AIDS in the U.S. since the beginning of the crisis in 1981. The virus disproportionately affected gay and bisexual men and is known as the moniker gay cancer. You can't make this stuff up. The virus only spreads through sexual intercourse or blood contact with an infected person. That's why most infected. Today, treatment of HIV/AIDS is greatly improved, with doctors using methods to prevent HIV from progressing to AIDS in many cases. Patients may be prescribed a drug cocktail of antiviral drugs to fight the virus. Number 8 is SARS, and that's actually what COVID is. It's C or V SARS. The SARS, or Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome epidemic, occurred globally in the early 2000s. The first outbreak of the virus was identified in China and would spread throughout East Asia as far as the United States. Approximately 8,000 people were affected with SARS during the epidemic, with almost 1,000 deaths. So why is this more deadly? I'm confused. Patients with SARS may experience fevers, aches, diarrhea, and pneumonia. The virus is spread through body droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes. The suspended liquid may be inhaled and infect another. SARS was ominously labeled the first pandemic of the 21st century by the media. In comparison to COVID-19, SARS has a far higher mortality rate, when 10% of those infected did not survive the illness. The World Health Organization and CDC worked tirelessly during the pandemic to restrict travel and contain the virus as much as possible. Ultimately, the United States would see only 8 cases, and measures were effective in preventing a massive outbreak in North America. Number 7, the swine flu. The 2009 H1N1 virus, also known as swine flu, is a strain of influenza which caused an 11-month worldwide pandemic. This influenza virus strain is also responsible for the Spanish flu, which happened over 100 years ago. We're probably going to talk about that. It's probably number 1, and Russian flu pandemics. The disease namesake comes from a virus arising from a mixture of genetic material from various birds, swine, and human flu viruses. This new virus combines its genetic material with the Eurasian pig flu virus, resulting in its name. Its symptoms are similar to the flu, and experts in the World Health Organization suspect that it is no deadlier. Due to the unknown number of asymptomatic cases, it is difficult to pinpoint the exact number of cases during the pandemic. But experts estimate that it could be as high as 700 million to 1.4 billion. That's all of China. The number of estimated deaths range from 150,000 to 575,000 people, for a comparison of 250,000 to 500,000 people die from the flu each year. Number 6, cholera. Many people are unaware that there is currently a cholera pandemic, which has been ongoing since 1961 in many underdeveloped nations. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Cholera. Cholera, I don't know. Primarily spreads when individuals consume water which is contaminated with fecal matter. Why the hell are you drinking poop water? For this reason, people in third world nations face an increased risk, and developed nations have seen a sharp decline in cases over the years as sanitation has improved to an all-time high. If the United States gets a cholera outbreak, I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything to under third world countries, but if we do, that is effed up and just terrible and stupid, because we're a developed nation. I don't mean to brag, but we are, you know what I mean? If cholera is untreated, an infected person can die within hours. Common symptoms include diarrhea, vomiting, thirst. But everybody's always thirsty. Okay, and dehydration, and begins somewhere between 2 hours and 5 days after exposure. The most recent outbreak of cholera in the United States ended in 1866 with an up to one-tenth people living in large cities dying from the disease. The primary way to fight, I think it's supposed to be a 1-10 ratio, but they put it in fractions, which, yes, a ratio is a fraction, but anyway. The primary way to fight cholera is to provide at-risk regions with adequate sanitation services and clean drinking water, along with using cholera vaccines selectively. Number 5, typhoid fever. Typhoid is a bacterial disease and can be carried and spread without symptoms. The most common symptoms of the disease are a high fever and sometimes abdominal pain, headaches, and constipation. I don't know what the hell that was for. The disease is known for some patients developing skin rashes characterized by rose-colored spots. These symptoms are caused by the bacterium's growth in the victim's blood and intestines. The most famous outbreak of typhoid in the United States occurred in 1906, involving the infamous Mary Mallon, better known as Typhoid Mary. Mary is thought to have brought typhoid to the United States as the first asymptomatic carrier. Asymptomatic meaning you don't have symptoms, but you have the disease. That would freaking suck and be scary. She was quarantined by authorities, but returned to her work as a cook, eventually being put into forced isolation for the final 30 years of her life. The epidemic's ending was in large part due to the widespread usage of the vaccine, which is between 40 and 90% effective in preventing transmission of the bacterium and can last up to 7 years. Sorry, I'm slouching. My neck is killing me. Number 4, whooping cough, which, unfortunately, the new strain can actually cause whooping cough. Whooping cough is also called the 100-day cough, coming from the disease's symptoms, sometimes persisting for up to 10 weeks. 10 weeks is 70 days. Whooping cough is an extremely contagious bacterial disease spread through suspended water droplets projecting through an infected person sneezing or cough. The first symptoms of the disease resemble the common cold, but are soon followed by violent coughing fits lasting weeks. After a fit of coughing, a high-pitched, weak sound may be heard as the person breathes in. Hence the name. Some individuals who suffer from whooping cough may cough so violently that they vomit or break ribs. Symptoms normally begin 7 to 10 days after infection. Infections may occur in those vaccinated, but with more mild symptoms. Whooping cough affects 16 million people each year, primarily in developing nations, with approximately 61,000 deaths. Most cases today occur in developing nations due to the lack of adequate health treatments. Outbreaks have been significantly diminished in the United States since the widespread implementations of vaccines, but some outbreaks have occurred in the early 2010s. One such outbreak in California saw almost 10,000 cases and 10 infant deaths after diagnoses by doctors. Experts have concluded that this outbreak and others are in large part due to members of the public refusing the vaccine for non-medical reasons. Number 3, measles. The measles virus is a highly contagious airborne disease spreading through coughs, sneezes, and contact with nasal secretions. Contact with nasal secretions? Symptoms normally reveal themselves 10 to 12 days after exposure and can last 7 to 10 days. Initial symptoms include a high fever, cough, runny nose, and inflamed eyes. 2 to 3 days after the start of these symptoms, Koplik's spots may develop. These are small white spots which forms inside the mouth, appearing like grains of salt near the molars. After the development of Koplik's spots, the measles rash develops in the face and spreads to the rest of the body. Some other complications may also arise from the virus, including pneumonia from measles-induced immunosuppressions. Measles was considered eradicated from the Americas in 2016, but cases have continued to be identified since. One outbreak in 1991 took place in Philadelphia, in which 1,400 people were infected with measles and 9 children died. This spike began at the Faith Tabernacle Congregation Faith Healing Church, which discouraged members to get vaccinated. Number 2, polio. Polio is an infectious disease caused by the polio virus. Polio is spread by a person ingesting infected feces. Why the heck is this preventable? Why are you eating poop? And in rare cases through infected saliva. But why the are you eating? Why the? I hope to God this is not how Franklin Roosevelt got polio. The vast majority of those infected with polio have no symptoms, and about a quarter experience mid-flu-like symptoms. In one out of every 200 cases, the virus moves from the gut to invade the central nervous system. This causes the individual to experience muscle weakness, most commonly in the legs. The muscle weakness may also less commonly involve the muscles of the head, neck, and diaphragm, and in rare cases require the assistance of an iron lung to maintain normal breathing. Holy crap. In victims where some level of muscle weakness occurs, 2 to 5% of children and 15 to 30% of adults die. The first polio epidemic in the United States began in 1894, and large outbreaks would continue to pop up throughout the first half of the 20th century. Polio had a massive impact on America and public health, with the most famous case being President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The peak period of polio in the U.S. occurred between 1916 and 1955. With the approval of the Salk vaccine in 1952, there were 57,628 reported cases and 3,145 deaths. Polio was eliminated in the Americas in 1994, and current vaccination efforts have helped to eradicate it from many third world countries as well. And number one, so we did not talk about Spanish flu. Number one is smallpox. Many consider smallpox to be a disease associated with the age of exploration. Yep. In the mid-17th century, but smallpox was not fully eradicated until 1978. The disease's origin is unknown, but evidence from Egyptian mummies indicate it existed at least before the 3rd century BCE. Small outbreaks occurred until its eradication, but the last major outbreak in the United States happened in 1902. The first symptoms of smallpox include fever and vomiting, with the eventual development of ulcers and distinct blisters. These blisters are characterized by a dent in the middle and are filled with fluid. These blisters eventually scab and fall off, leaving scars. Some of these scabs have survived in time capsules, such as scab found in a Civil War era book in the late 20th century. The last smallpox outbreak began in 1901 and lasted 3 years, with 1,596 cases and almost 300 people dying. The epidemic had a 17% fatality rate, far less than previous outbreaks in less developed nations and without proper control measures. The smallpox vaccine is a primary reason for the disease eradication. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. If you know anyone who had these COVIDs, these diseases, I don't know, good luck to you. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!